Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 593, and today's date is February 16th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Major Offensive in the Middle East Being Prepared by the U.S. Government's Central Bankers. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand Europe is still discussing their bailout plan with the Greek government, and the Greek government is continually pushing back, saying, no, we do not want more debt. No, we do not want more austerity. And we can see right now the Greek talks with Europe, they're completely falling apart. And they're breaking down at this point, and nobody can agree on anything. And Greek has just rejected the Eurogroup's plan. And what the Eurogroup is saying right now is that all payments to the Greek government should be immediately stopped. So they're going to cut off funding at this time. And you have to remember, Greece does have alternatives. They could turn towards Russia or towards China. The ECB is kind of stuck because they're owed this money. And Greece might say, you know what, we're just not paying this back. And this is what they're afraid of. And we can see the Greek people are getting very nervous. They don't want to hold on to these euros. They're taking their money out and they are purchasing gold. The Greek citizens are protecting themselves. I mean, if we look at the Greek Central Bank and we look at the numbers, we see that 5,900 golden British sovereigns in January were sold, a total of 7,857 coins in the fourth quarter of 2014. If we would extrapolate the 5,849 coins in January, we would end up with the quarterly sales rate of about 17,500 coins. This is more than twice of the fourth quarter in 2014, which is basically a 123% increase. And the European leaders are looking around the world and they're saying, you know something? Or I should say Europe. And they're saying, this is spreading. Anti-austerity protests are spreading. They are calling it the Syriza virus. And they're very nervous about this. The wave of protest indicates a new beginning because Syriza virus can spread to the rest of Europe. And we see it spreading to many different countries. In France, in Spain, in Portugal, United Kingdom, Italy. We see it spreading in Denmark, in Finland. And it's continually going on, and it's spreading to each one of these cities. And the Eurogroup, they're very, very nervous about this. And they don't want this to spread, and they don't want Greece to write off the debt because the rest of Europe is going to look at this and say, we can do the same thing. And this is when the entire central banking system starts to collapse. We are already seeing it collapsing. I mean, just look around, look at the evidence, look at everything that we've been talking about and how it's built up from that time. All the military assets that have been moved into Eastern Europe, into the Middle East, in Africa, and to the Pacific. I mean, provocation with all these countries, which are pretty much the same. It's Russia, North Korea, China, Iran, Syria, Venezuela, and many others that belong to the BRIC nations. We see that the United States government central bankers are pushing war. That's it. They know the system is coming tumbling down. Tesco right now is going to cut up to about 10,000 jobs. United Airlines, 1,100 jobs in 16 airports. We see the Baltic Dry Index. It has fallen once again. It is now down to 522 points. It fell another 8 points, and this is the raw material that is shipped all over the world, and it goes to manufacturers. The manufacturers produce goods, and they sell them through retail chains and other places. And we can see that since people aren't purchasing, companies aren't ordering, the whole thing is falling apart. There is no demand. And we see major shipbuilders being hit by this. They're losing tons of money. And it is all falling apart. And the U.S. government central bankers, they realize this. They know it's falling apart. And right now what we see is the Department of Homeland Security since they are not getting the funding because the Republicans are fighting against the illegal immigration, the memorandum that the Obama administration created where it allows illegals into the countries. They're trying to fight back, and they're saying they're going to defund DHS, but don't worry, we most likely might see something occur, or they're going to continually say there could be a tax here, and this is why we need DHS. And basically what's going to happen if they do not get their funding, which most likely they will, but it would lead to about 30,000 employees which would be sidelined during the department shutdown. The House has acted to defund the department and to stop the president's overreach when it comes to immigration and his executive orders. And this is what Boehner said. And we could see, will this actually work? Most likely not. It seems like they have no power. The Congress has no power right now because they're not forceful enough to say, you know what, this is completely unconstitutional. They play games and then they always give in. But we can see Obama is not stopping. We know the collapse is coming. They tried time and time again to get certain weapons away from the American people because they are afraid of the American people having drones, the American people having bulletproof vests, American people having weapons, especially those equal to their nationalized police force, DHS. They're very nervous about this, and they tried with many different false flags and different shootings to try to pass different legislation. And Obama has said, you know what, forget this. It's easier to go after the ammunition, and this is what he's doing. The president is using both to target gun owners, specifically owners of the AR-15. If you can't outlaw the guns, get rid of the ammunition. The AR-15 platform, also commonly referred to as the modern sporting rifle, has dominated the civilian market. The popularity of the AR-15 is the reason it is a target of the Obama administration. The latest assault on the Second Amendment came after the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives unexpectedly announced on Friday the 13th that it intends to ban commonplace M855 ball ammunition as armor-piercing ammunition. So they're outlawing .223 ammunition. That's what they're doing right now. Instead of going through the legislative process, Obama is creating an executive order to once again impose gun control over this. So he's saying, okay, we've tried with all these false flag shootings. We couldn't get the bills passed for the AR-15. We couldn't get them off. We couldn't get them off the street. We need to go after the ammunition. If we can get their ammunition away from the people, the AR-15s are worthless. 3 major 2A assaults in 2015 have happened already. The first came when the activities that constitute manufacturing firearms were changed. Next was the flip-flopping decision of the BATFE regarding firing a shouldered pistol. The most serious, or at least far-reaching, is of course the framework for determining whether certain projectiles are primarily intended for sporting purposes within the meaning of the 18 U.S.C. 921 Section 17C. The new proposal regulation would eliminate the M855 exemption to the armor-piercing ammunition prohibition and make future exemptions nearly impossible. And basically what they're trying to do is just get rid of all the ammunition under certain legislation. But again, under the Second Amendment, we are allowed to bear arms. Arms stands for weapons and ammunition. They cannot do this. It is a violation of the Second Amendment, but they will push this as hard as they possibly can to try to get the weapons away from the American people. Now, Britain's GCHQ spy agency has deployed armed police to protect its Cheltenham operation, but insists there is no specific threat there. Nearby residents received a letter in the post informing them that the government's national listening post was introducing armed Ministry of Defense police at their Ben Hall site. A GCHQ spokesman said the move was related to the raising of the UK terror threat level last year. British spy agency MI5 raised the threat level from substantial to severe in August, meaning a terrorist attack is highly likely. The letter stressed such additional security measures would have no impact on the local residents. Well, basically what they're doing is they're getting armed forces prepared and in place, and who knows, maybe a false flag is about to happen. Now, over the weekend, we talked about Boko Haram, and we can see right now this is a CIA operation to basically break up and have the U.S. come in and take over these countries, because wherever China is, wherever Russia is, that's where the United States has to be. They need to capture the national resources. Now Boko Haram has issued new threats Monday against neighboring countries, Niger and Chad, warning the fighters were prepared to carry out suicide bombings in their countries. And of course, this is coming from Site Intelligence Group, which is owned by Rita Katz, which is an Israeli operation. And we can see most of the stuff that comes out of there most likely is created, and anything that comes out of there is pure propaganda. This entire system that we see with all these terrorists are propaganda. They're using it to force those governments to have the U.S. come in and help them out. And once they're in there, they can garrison the country. Once they take over the country, they can take over the natural resources. And Nigeria has been fighting this. They did not want the United States in there. They have a very close relationship with China. And Niger and Chad decided, hey, you know what, we will help you out and we will push back Boko Haram. Boko Haram now is being pushed back by these countries. They are winning a lot of the battles, and this is why this propaganda threat is coming out. And we most likely will see suicide bombings in these areas to get this whole movement started, where the United States needs to get into this area. Now we can see right now the ceasefire has been enacted on Sunday, and it's really not working out. But we can see that a Ukrainian prosecutor general has launched an investigation into a criminal case for the delivery of electricity to the Crimean Peninsula. Last month, Ukraine's Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, which we know is a central banker, which was put into place by the United States government, accused Ukraine's energy ministry of violating the country's interest when power companies signed a deal with Russia Energy Holdings. Basically, they're trying to turn the lights off in Crimea. And they're doing whatever they possibly can to get Russia out of there. But again, Crimea is now part of Russia, not part of Ukraine. So we'll have to watch this and see how this turns out. Now, there is a report out there, and I don't know if it's true or false, but it has come out that the Ukraine government might confiscate the people's money in the banking system. Now, we know this is a real possibility. Of course, the Ukrainian government, the bankers there, are saying, absolutely not, this is crazy, I don't know where this report came from. But we've seen this before, and we know the central bankers will get desperate. The country is falling apart, it is collapsing. And we can see right now, to prop up the banks from them failing, they will go inward and take the funds there. And of course, the Ukraine government is saying Ukraine is not planning to nationalize bank deposits. This is coming from the finance ministry. The central bank and the largest commercial lender, private bank, said in a coordinated statement. While such a drastic step is not seen as likely in the immediate future, even discussions surrounding such subjects show the gravity of Ukraine's financial plight. The report said the government is considering nationalizing deposits over $8,000 to fund the budget in the event of a state war being declared. Russia holds a $3 billion Ukrainian bond that's due for redemption in December of 2015. The bond's covenant allows the holder to demand early repayment in the event Ukraine's debt-GDP ratio exceeds 60%, which has done that already. And we know from Ukraine, they're out there spreading propaganda and lies. Look at the photos they give Senator Inhofe. Look what they've done with saying that Russia is inside Ukraine. Look what they've done when they said Russia shot down MH17. So, is this report true? I'm leaning towards yes, it is, because we see the entire thing falling apart. Russia has a bond which is coming due, and they are continually getting more and more loans. They're not abiding by the ceasefire, and we know the central bankers don't want the west portion of Ukraine. They want the southeastern. That's where the production is, and they're definitely going to go after Crimea because it has the port on the Black Sea, and they want the entire country. This is what they wanted from the beginning. And if they do not have it, they're going to continually push war, which we are seeing right now. Now, Russia is out in the UN, and they're trying to get a UN Security Council to vote as soon as possible on the Minsk agreements. and Russia is engaged in negotiations with the 15-member UN Council on the resolution initiated by Moscow. The draft resolution welcomes the results of the talks in Minsk and includes a call for the parties to be committed to implementing them. But the vote was delayed, of course, due to amendments introduced in regard to the document. So everything has been delayed, and the UN has come up with absolutely nothing at this point. And we see there is still major shelling going on in Ukraine. And we see that the Kiev government, the central bankers, are shelling the airport. They're firing into Donetsk area, and the Donetsk people are saying that they're trying not to be led into this provocation where they fight back. But they did say that, they're trying to abide by the Minsk agreements, but if the Ukraine security forces fire as a provocation, we will not return fire. But if the firing threatens the militia or civilians, then we will return fire. So if you see Kiev hit another school, another hospital, another trolley, another bus, they will return fire. And of course, here in the United States, the corporate media is saying that it is the rebels who are firing that, but actually what it is Kiev. Because actually, if you look at the peace deal leans more towards the rebels, and there is no reason for them to go ahead and fight. They were winning. They were pushing the Kiev troops back. They had them surrounded. So the motive for the rebels to continually fight, there is no motive. The motive for Kiev is there because they want the southeastern, they want all the factories, they want the production, and they want Crimea, and the bankers are pushing them. And they are not letting up whatsoever. And we can see right now the Kiev troops, they are not observing the ceasefire whatsoever. They're not withdrawing the heavy military assets. And the Donetsk people are waiting because they want to do it at the same exact time. But this is not happening. And the Donetsk people saying, well, if they're not going to withdraw with us at the same time, we are not going to do it. And they're continually shelling, which makes it very difficult. Now, as we know, the United States government, the central bankers they've been demonizing many different countries, and they're doing this on purpose because they need to get the level of the American people at a certain point where they believe that these countries or groups are enemies. Right now, we understand that people do, about 83%, this was a Gallup poll, saying yes, the Islamic State is a threat to the United States. So they have that where they want it. Now we see that Americans agree Russia is now the greatest enemy of the U.S. So they both have Russia and the Islamic State exactly where they want. They convince the American people with all this propaganda that, yes, we do have enemies, and these are the people that we're going to be going to war with. And 18% of Americans consider Russia to be the United States' greatest enemy today, up from 2% a few years ago, Gallup poll said. 15% said North Korea. 12% said China, 9% said Iran, and 8% said Iraq. 49% also now see Russia's military power as a critical threat compared to 32% last year. So these percentages are moving up. They're watching the polls because as soon as they reach a certain point, they're going to say, okay, we have the green light. The American people are with us. We have fooled them enough where they are convinced that Russia and the Islamic State are a huge threat, and they will go to war if there is some type of false flag event. And we have to remember, they need to push this war because the entire system is falling apart. They are losing control of the Middle East, and we see already that they're trying to maneuver a way of putting back the puppet regimes both in Libya and Yemen. The United Nations Security Council has voted right now to adopt a resolution that demands the rebels, the people in Yemen, to relinquish control of the government, to put the puppet government back in power. The United States and 10 other countries co-sponsored the resolution that had been originally drafted by Jordan and the United Kingdom. The resolution demands that the people in Yemen immediately and unconditionally withdraw forces from government institutions. Now we can see what they're trying to do. They've created and had the UN. They created the UN Security resolution, and they are pushing this to see if they abide by it. Now, most likely they're not going to do this. The resolution demands that they do this immediately. And the question is, if they don't do this, what's next on their agenda? And we can see right now, Samantha Powers is out there saying the people of Yemen deserve a clear path back to the political transition process and a legitimate government. That's strange. But let's think of this for a second. The people in Yemen were upset with their government. They decided to use force and to overthrow the government. Now, the United States is not happy with this. Why? Because the puppet government was in charge there, and the United States has no control over Yemen at this point. So, of course, they're out there saying, well, the people don't have the right to do this. The government, they're the ones who have control. Then we look at Ukraine. When the people were rising up, they were saying the people have the right to speak. They have the right to overthrow their government with force. So you see how it works. Once they have a puppet government in power, the people are terrorists. They are not allowed to rise up. If they do not have control of the government and they want an overthrow, the people have all the rights. And they call about freedom of speech, democracy. But as soon as they get their puppet government in there, those same people who say, wait a minute, what's going on here? We don't want this. They are now terrorists. So they talk on two sides of their mouths. It's a big game. The central bankers, the United States government, they're not interested in freedom. They're not interested in democracy. That's an illusion. They made you understand that we have it, but we really don't. Not even in this country. If we want a change in government, believe me, they will not allow this to happen. They will come down on the American people, and this is why they are getting rid of drones, Kevlar vests. They're getting rid of weapons and ammunition because they know when this system, the entire system, starts falling apart, and people, like it's spreading throughout Europe right now, the anti-austerity movement, people are going to rise up. This is why you see the armed forces all across the world getting ready for this. They know it's coming. They realize they can't keep this off for much longer. They're doing everything they possibly can. And we see they're getting ready to go into Libya because it's falling apart. They lost control. And this is why they had the Islamic State in Libya kill the Egyptian people. Now, was it really the Islamic State? Most likely not. It was probably another group that was captured these people, put them to death because they wanted Egypt to do something. And Egypt now is bombing Libya, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted them in the fold. They wanted them to push the war in Libya. Italy right now warned that the Islamic State is at Europe's doorstep as France and Egypt call for the United Nations Security Council to meet over the spiraling crisis in Libya. And we can see right now they are getting ready to go into Yemen. They're getting ready to go into Libya. And we can see there is troop buildup in Kuwait right now. 4,000 more troops are in there. So we have a total of about almost 10,000 troops all ready to go in Iraq or around the surrounding areas. And believe me, there's going to be a lot more coming because they're getting ready for a major, major offensive. Now, it is getting so bad in Libya. Libya's National Oil Corporation said it could suspend production because, again, they rather shut everything down and defend it than have the people of Libya take over the oil, take over the oil fields, take over the oil tankers, and have them go out and sell the oil, not using the US dollar. And we can see that everything will be shut down. They rather have it shut down than have these people go out and sell it not using the dollar. We see already the United Arab Emirates. They are bombing inside Syria. Of course, they're not bombing the Islamic State. They're bombing more of the infrastructure, oil refineries. They're clearing it out. Remember, the territory the Islamic State held is now triple the size since the bombing. Because we have to remember, the armed forces, the U.S. proxy army, the Islamic State, is maneuvering throughout Syria. And this is where the U.S. and the coalition forces are bombing. That is the air force of the Islamic State. And they're doing this and expanding the area. They are getting ready to go after Assad. But again, there's going to be problems. Because who is on the other side? Russia, China, and they're getting ready for a major, major play here. And they're building up. We can see all the military assets coming down into Kuwait. Troops now are in Kuwait. It's exactly what we thought was going to happen. And we're still waiting for the authorization for war. That has not been approved by Congress. Congress is going back and forth. The American people, I would say we do not want war. There should be no ground troops. We should bring our people home. Get rid of the central banking system. Start fresh. But again, they're in control at this point, and most of the people have been brainwashed and they're convinced that we are going to need to go to war. Eventually, when this major, major false flag event occurs, that will be the convincing, deciding factor for everyone. And they're going to have to do it, because when the system collapses, they're going to have to convince everyone that, yes, it's time to go to war with Russia. It's time to go to war with North Korea. We have to go after all the countries in the Middle East because of the Islamic State. They're going to have to eventually do this. They got the people up to a certain point, but again, to push them over the edge for war, it takes a lot more than just polls. Now we see there was an international hacking group that stole about $300 million from many different banks around the world. And it was very sophisticated. And I'm still waiting to see more information on this. They're saying there was over 100 banking and financial institutions in 30 different countries. I'm assuming that this was some type of test of something where they were able to transfer funds, make bank accounts be inflated with dollars, and then remove the dollars to make it look like nothing has happened. And we're seeing this, and of course we do have cyber legislation pending, and they're waiting to be voted on, and they're doing everything they possibly can to push their agenda with this. Now the Islamic State is letting everyone know that they have 4,000 ISIS gunmen smuggled into Western nations, ready to go at a moment's notice. They're saying that it's our dream that there should be a caliphate not only in Syria but in all the world, and we have to do it soon. So you can see they're preparing for what's coming. There's also a report out of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they've been studying the domestic terrorism. And they're saying the report finds that the vast majority of the violence is coming from lone wolves or leaderless resistance groups composed of no more than 2 people. The study clearly shows that the urgent need for federal agencies to reinvigorate their work studying and analyzing the radical right. It's important to recognize the trend away from organized groups committing acts of domestic terrorists. They're saying that the police, DHS, need to bulk up on the armed forces because the domestic terrorists, like, those people that believe in the Constitution, the sovereign citizen, the people that don't agree with the government, they don't have leaders, but they're broken off into lone wolf groups. U.S. law enforcement agencies perceive sovereign citizen movement as the top terrorist threat. It is imperative that the authorities, including those gathering at the White House next week, take this threat seriously. Anything else would be an invitation for disaster. So what they're out there telling the government is that, yes, domestic terrorists, those people that do not agree with the government, that want to get rid of the central bank, that believe our rights are being chipped away and removed, which they can't unless we let them. Those people who would stand up to the government and who would not agree, these are the people that are a huge, huge threat. And from their report, they're spread out all over the country. They don't have any leaders. They're broken off into small groups getting ready to attack the government. This is what they're trying to tell everybody. So they are getting prepared. You have to understand. They've been creating lists. They've been putting people on lists because they need to know who is going to be a threat to their authority. Because when this system comes crashing down, there will be riots, but there will be those people who are organized to say, you know what? This government needs to go. The central banking system needs to go. They are not working in the best interests of the people of the United States. And again, the people will have to rise up once again. Our founding fathers gave us a gift, but it wasn't going to last forever. They even said it, that it was not going to last forever. They said that once again the people will have to fight for their freedoms. And here we are once again. As things continually break down, we see things are getting worse and worse as time goes on. They're almost complete with closing down an open society. And they're trying to disarm the people, take away their rights, take away free speech, lock down the flow of information. So you can see right in front of your eyes, all of this is happening. And they do it very slowly. But when you add everything up, you see the bigger picture. And this is what we're seeing right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.